Welcome back to Building Belmont. I'm Keanu Trujillo. So today we have a guest who is involved in many lanes, many areas, but all of them are impact-oriented, purpose-oriented, service-oriented, and we're blessed to have him here in Belmont, building businesses that reach and impact across the globe, truly. So Adi, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you and your time. Obviously, we got to have a great conversation already, and I got to hear a little bit about your background. So for those that don't know you, can you walk us through how you got your start in business and obviously in healthcare and how you ended up here in Belmont?
Thanks, Keanu. I'm delighted to be able to talk to everybody and through your podcast to the citizens of Belmont and the wider audience out there. I have lived in Belmont for the last 10 years, have been in Gaston County for the last 18 years. So I consider myself native as native as they come. I grew up in India, did my undergrad in electrochemical engineering, came to the US for my PhD, did my PhD in Utah, then my postdoctoral fellowship at the Scripps Research Institute in La Jolla, spent a year there. Wanted to be in academia, but we don't pay our PhDs very well. And I was in the red every month and started looking for a job. Found a job at First Union Capital Markets, and in fact, at that time, the president of First Union Capital Markets, Ross Annable, he's still an advisor, a board member, became a mentor. So he's the one who hired me at First Union Capital Markets, and I stayed with the bank for 3 years. Started my own technology company in 2000. We merged it with a company out of Connecticut. Those were tough days. .com bubble burst, and all the tech companies were disappearing from the face. Telecom companies. We survived, merged, and eventually that company was sold to Goldman Sachs, and then was further sold to BAE Systems, British Aerospace Engineering. We recently acquired it back in 2019. When I say we, the management team, I'm an investor, Ross Annable is an investor in buying that company back, and we've again started rebuilding it. Sometimes when these companies, entrepreneurial companies, are sold to large multinationals, they kind of lose their focus, they lose their purpose and mission and go sideways, and that company, Silver Sky, went that way. But the existing management team that wanted us involved and bought it back. So that's a legacy, and after we merged the company with Perimeter, I met two amazing professional women who had built Compleat Rehab as a business. In Gastonia, we acquired that business. They were really focused on also the mission, and highly literate people focused on making a difference in the life of Gaston County, and especially the Medicare population, especially the elderly population. So that's how I came to be in Gaston County in 2005, and have stayed here ever since. Fell in love with the people here.
Compleat Rehab, is that what brought you to Gaston County? Or?
That is what brought me to Gaston County.
Okay.
Yeah.
First impressions when you got here? Obviously it was a very different place in 2005.
It was a very different place. It was struggling. A lot of companies were laying people out. A lot of textile companies were shrinking. Late 90s and during the 90s, a lot of manufacturing went out of Gastonia, and so people's livelihood was being impacted. And overall, there was a lot of labor available, but people were literally depressed, a lot of them. And now it's a totally different place. I think, and I'll talk later about how Gastonia and Gaston County and Belmont especially have not ceded control to Charlotte in terms of its downtown. Whereas if you look at all the other satellite towns around Charlotte, they have kind of ceded their downtowns and social fabric to Charlotte. Whether it's Pineville, whether it's Matthews, whether it's Concord, whether it's Huntersville, they have good areas, but they basically have said, well, we want to be part of Uptown rather than building their own. Whereas Belmont has done a great job, and now Gastonia is following suit. So that's, that tells you that Gastonia, as they say, form is temporary, but the foundation is solid, permanent. So I think Gastonia traditionally has been the driver, industrial driver of this region, the Gaston County area, with all of the mills in Gastonia, Concord, up in Salisbury even, where these textile mills were. Whereas Charlotte was a banking town. So the banking took off and everything was manufactured out or sourced out. But I think over time, all of these mills have done some amazing job. For example, there's a lot of innovation going on in textiles, where they're now starting to support the U.S. Army with special fabric, which is antimicrobial fabric. The coats bought for yarns, and so they're doing some innovative stuff here. So hopefully, we've turned the corner, and we can see it.
Yes.
The amount of growth that's coming into Gaston County, we've seen it. Absolutely. So that's what brought me to Gaston County, so Compleat Rehab. And then the hospital reached out to us, sold us pediatric therapy services, so we added pediatrics to our whole portfolio. And then Gentiva, at that time was Total Care, came to us and said, would you help us with home health? And so we partnered with Gentiva to build a company that spanned 20 states, and then eventually also divested that company and that group to Gentiva in 2016 and started building adult rehab facilities. And then in 2018, with the Affordable Care Act supporting developmental delay and autism care, we started building our pediatric clinics. We admitted our first kiddo in our program, the autism program, in 2019, and now we are probably the largest, we are the largest provider of autism services in North Carolina.
Wow.
And hope to add another 5 or 6 facilities. We're driven by the mission that if you catch these kids when they're 2 or 3 years old, you can really make an impact. You can change the trajectory of their lives and take a neurodiverse child and put them in a typically developing stream. Saves the taxpayer a lot of money. If you are late by about 2 or 3 years and you catch the child when they're 5 or 6, a lot of times you can still impact it, but it's much harder. And a lot of times you miss the chance, and the child does not reach their potential. So there are 15,000 kids on the wait list in North Carolina, and we cannot build facilities fast enough. We cannot find providers fast enough. And so I'm hoping part of the message here through your podcast is that there are great things happening in Gaston County, and people from all over the country should potentially move here to work with and make an impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be happy to connect with your recruiting team to see how I can serve those efforts, because what it sounds like is the providers, and we touched on this earlier, we'll get to touch on Kare Partners India, but it's the providers that really set the tempo of the growth or the expansion. Is that correct?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
100%. We're right now recruiting and onboarding 7 to 10 new providers every week. So we will be adding about 500 employees across North Carolina this year in 2022. Next year, we hope to double that rate of employee onboarding as well as provider onboarding and job creation and growth. So next year, we hope to be able to add 1,500 people to our team.
From a 30,000 foot view, if I was looking at your resume, growing up in India, electrochemical engineering, moving to Utah to get your PhD, then moving to San Diego to work in, and finding your way then to investment banking for a time. So we have school, electrochemical engineering, tech, finance, and then finally finding yourself in healthcare. I mean, from a 30,000 foot view, that makes no sense, right? And mine is similar: corrections, law enforcement, military, finance, ministry. But when you drill down, you start to see some patterns or some themes or really a heart behind that. So how did you find yourself from electrochemical engineering to now healthcare?
So, my dad always used to say that in high school, you learn how to learn. In undergrad, you learn how to answer questions. And in life, and as during your PhD days, you learn how to ask good questions. So if you're curious, if you work hard, and if you have the proper fundamentals, you can pretty much do anything. Obviously, the key here is always finding the people who are experts in the field and area. I was mentored by some of the best during the investment banking days, technology days. Found a great team to work with at iReady World that became the foundation of a company that became a global company that we've recently acquired. And then in healthcare as well, met these two women who had built the business, and they did an amazing job transferring the group, shepherding the group, and teaching me everything that I knew. And then some of the employees are still there from 2005. And so the key is to find out what you're acquiring, keys to find out where you're getting into, and really leveraging the skills there. But overall, everything that I've done, whether it was undergrad, the PhD days, was literally trying to follow what my passions were. Whether it was engineering and building things, to biochemistry, that's what I did my PhD in drug design and healthcare. And then the technology company that we started was focused on security at that time. And so all of those are coming together, as people always say, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, but you never know where these opportunities lie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I see now that you're using all of those, or understanding how to bring all those relationships or connections together to serve children with autism, or serve people with cardiac issues in India, or even just connect business owners here in the area. So leveraging all of those connections, I see that as being a big part of your story, and seeing that none of it was wasted, and really being able to bring it back together. I want to emphasize that point though. I wish I would have heard that when I was going into high school. So I want to emphasize it, because someone didn't get that advice that your dad gave you, and I didn't. And so I wanted to emphasize that. In high school, you learn how to learn. In undergrad, you learn how to answer questions. And in grad school, you learn how to ask good questions.
That's right.
But what happens after that? Okay.
And then
I think you use it.
And then you use it. I think in life, it's identifying a problem is hard. And then working with people to solve it is easy. And so experience, that's what experience gives you. That's what ability to learn and be curious gives you, is identifying the problem, asking the right questions. I think that is the hardest part in life. Anybody can answer a question once it's presented to them appropriately. But, that's where the progress comes from, is asking the right questions.
Yes.
Good research is about progress,
Yes.
And good research is about asking questions.
Brilliant. See, some people were tuning in to think that they were, and they will, get to understand what is coming to the middle school and what you're bringing to the community. But if you're really leaning in and gleaning from this wisdom and this advice, if you're a business owner or you're an undergrad or whatever it is that you're doing, you can really take this and apply it. I say often that I just get to be the one lucky enough to ask the questions and do the interviews. Selfishly, I get to experience that firsthand. So you mentioned that you came to Gastonia because you wanted to acquired Compleat Rehab. I wanted you to touch on the name for a moment. Obviously, names give identity, and Compleat, spelt Compleat. You mentioned a little bit of background or history on that word.
The people who founded Compleat, and it's pronounced in the Old English, and it's written in the Old English way, Compleat, the Shakespearean way. And they were collectors of literary novels from the 1700s and 1800s, original leather-bound novels, and they were just big fans of literature, and so they chose Compleat, which also means complete, Complete. So it's Compleat Rehab, getting you back to your the best form that you can be, and so but they named it Compleat, and then Kare. We name it Kare, so one of the things we have demonstrated that we cannot spell.
Yes,
so whether
right.
it is Kare, whether it's Compleat. And so we have a tough time, almost everybody who works in a company has a tough time with autocorrect till they actually put that in their dictionary,
Yes.
local dictionary. So it's a challenge coming to work with for Kare partners or Compleat.
Well, I'm glad that you touched on a few brands there. We have Cure, which is a tech company, the platform that you run your businesses on. Then you have Care Partners India, and then CompleatKidz and Compleat Rehab. For a couple of minutes, will you tell us about all 4 of these brands or these organizations that all work together and what they do?
Yeah, so Compleat Rehab focuses on neuro, cardiac, and orthopedic rehab, working with from kids all the way up to people in 70s and 80s with knee replacements, hip replacements. We also see a lot of stroke patients for the rehab and getting them back to the best form. CompleatKidz works with the developmental delay, whether it is speech delay, fine motor delay, gross motor delay, or kids on the autism spectrum disorders and related disorders. So kids with behavior challenges, kids with learning disabilities, kids with social issues. So we work with them. That's CompleatKidz. Care Partners India came about because we wanted to, one, because of my background as a person who grew up in India, and realized that the medical infrastructure in the US is probably the best. Now that I've lived in several countries, and I can definitely attest to the fact that we have one of the best medical infrastructure in the world. And comparing that to India and hearing every day about people dying because they didn't have emergent help, that is emergency help in terms of cardiac and heart attacks. So, and given the fact that my dad was also misdiagnosed as an angina patient and suffered throughout his life, he passed away in 2020, but wanted to really do something for people who were underserved in smaller towns and cities in India. So we have 10 cardiac centers, so that's Care Partners India. And the Cure is something that we started building in 2012 to support our home health business, which we sold in 2016, and then repurposed it to run the rest of our business, and especially our fastest growing segment, that is CompleatKidz. We have taken the steps to spin Cure off and starting to make it available for free to all of the other pediatric clinics. Pediatrics is a tough area, and all the people that are working in it, the margins are slim, but it's the way we shape a nation. I think unfortunately we don't pay our educators very well, but at the end of the day, people don't realize the impact the educators make, the pediatricians make, and so on and so forth. So that's what we want to focus on. So that's what Cure is focused on, is allowing people to be able to do better care, scale their operations, and so we'll make that available free at the end of the year.
Well, you mentioned something I thought it was worth mentioning as far as the work that you're doing in India, obviously being where you're from and what your family experienced there. You mentioned that, and I asked if cardiac issues or cardiologists were lacking in India. You mentioned that in the US we have 30,000 cardiologists to 330 million. And in India, it's roughly 10,000 cardiologists to 1.2 billion people?
Yep, 1.2 billion, yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Okay.
So there's a massive shortage. The same thing in pediatric therapy here as well. One of the areas that we got into primarily because it's just, we need another 30,000 BCBAs in the US, board certified behavior analysts. These are professionals that assess kids with autism disorders. These are the professionals that drive the programming, supervise the treatment, supervise the care, and the kids that are growing up without the benefit of working with the BCBA will end up struggling, and we see that, because they are trying to fit into a society. So two things have to happen. The society has to be more accepting of these kids, but two, we have to grow more BCBAs, and over the next 10 to 15 years, hopefully both of those will converge.
How long is the education for a BCBA?
Undergrad, master's, residency, so it's about 8, 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And someone listening to this right now, say they're going to South Point High School and they want to be a BCBA, and they're obviously drawn to your mission and what you're doing. What are you offering to them? Is there schooling involved that you help to subsidize or to pay for? What's the approach there? I'm teeing you up for a good recruiting pitch.
Oh, absolutely. So, after high school, we do hire a lot of RBTs, which is registered behavior techs. So kids after high school can come work part-time with us, work with kids under the direction of a BCBA, and then they get their bachelor's. They have to get their bachelor's. Once they get their bachelor's, and they can get their bachelor's while working with us, but then we finance 100% of their master's education to become a BCBA, and then also provide all of the residency requirements that they have so they can work with our BCBAs. We have a really good educational program. We are currently growing 12 of our own BCBAs, and every company out there is trying to grow them. So this is a tremendous career and an impactful career. Everybody should aim to be successful, financially independent, not a burden on society, and so on and so forth. So I'm a firm believer of that, yes. Right? But there is nothing like making money while also making an impact. So this is one of those careers, and it's six-figure salaries for BCBAs. Yes. And plus, yeah.
My wife is finishing her degree in elementary and special education, and I am so drawn towards those with the heart for those with developmental delays or on the autism spectrum, because I was, like I said, law enforcement, military, and experienced some very harsh things. But I helped her to write a paper one time. I actually wrote it for her. But I had to watch 3 15-minute videos of children with autism and basically report on, how they were responding or how they were interacting, and it just shook me. I mean, I was just heartbroken. And I'm a big man, but it just, it broke me. And so I just have such a heart for those that are inclined to serve those children that need that help, because, and I can respond to a shooting, but if you send me into there, emotionally it's very difficult. So to be able to again support that or get behind that, I wanted to make sure that we get a good recruiting pitch, but I'll be sure as well to, like I said, I'll connect with your recruiter and see what we can do to help.
Thank you.
It's just such a blessing that we have this here. I actually have a friend who, she just graduated from Belmont Abbey. She wants to be a speech pathologist. I assume that's a role you're hiring for.
Georgina, Gina is a speech pathologist.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she went back to Florida to get her graduate. And I told her, I said, I think I know some people that maybe we can connect you with to bring you back to Belmont, because she does want to come back to Belmont and found her family. And so I think that it's just something to be said about knowing that that's common. We were talking about shooting. You were in the Indian Army, and so we were talking about long range shooting. And sometimes if it's in our backyard, we just take it for granted. And I mentioned being raised in northern New Mexico, we have one of the best NRAs in the country, the Whittington Center, and we'd go out there and shoot all the time. We had a variety. Yeah. And I took it for granted. I just thought everyone has this.
And here, there's nothing around. No, it's not. Yeah. So when we go out long distance shooting, we have to travel 2 hours to be able to do that. Yeah.
And it was about 15 minutes from my front door. And so I just want to emphasize that just because you are here, you're in Gaston County, you're doing this, you're bringing this impact to the middle school, which we're going to get to now, not to take it for granted that that's in our backyard, because that's not everywhere. It does not exist everywhere, especially under leadership like you and your leadership team, obviously being very impact oriented while also continuing to fund and move forward. So now the middle school, tell me about what was the catalyst for the middle school? How long was it on your radar as a place where you wanted to move into and expand CompleatKidz and also impact the community? Or was it something that came about recently?
Well, in 2018, when we got a license to start working with children with autism, we very quickly realized that our clinics, our average clinic size, were about 4,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet. We realized that we needed to grow that just because the number of referrals we were getting were significant. Even now, today, with 10 facilities, we still have about 200 kids on the wait list. And the kids spend about 20 to 25 hours with us, and it's one-on-one instruction with the registered behavior tech, with the BCBA, with the licensed psychology associate, with licensed psychologists. So there's a team that works with the child, and it is extremely critical that each child has about 200 square feet of space. Obviously, that includes common areas, so on and so forth. So when you start looking at that, our 3,000 square foot clinic would only be able to take care of 15 kids at any given time. So we started in 2019, we started expanding to 10,000 square feet, and then 2020 realized that was not going to be enough. So 25,000 square feet. And at that point, Belmont Middle School, the new Belmont Middle School was starting to be constructed, and we realized, this is 2019, and we started making plans around the Belmont Middle School as a gift from typically developing kids to neurodiverse kids. We said, one, it's a historic building, 1938. And we've demonstrated in Gastonia, downtown Gastonia, we've demonstrated in Salisbury, we've demonstrated in other areas that we are suckers for tradition and culture, that we'll take these buildings, and even if it costs us a little more, we'll try to preserve the historic significance of these. And so Belmont Middle School just lent itself to symbolically a gift from kids that don't necessarily struggle to kids who potentially could use that infrastructure again. And so we decided to really, if we invest in that, I think it can become a symbol. But two, Holy Angels is doing a great job here, Sisters of Mercy, with extremely profound kids. So they deal with kids that are extremely challenged and challenging. So we thought we already have a tradition in Belmont that the Sisters of Mercy have kind of blazed the trail. And now it is up to the private industry to come in, on their coattails, build that up. Our program is strong, and we need space. So 30,000 square feet. In addition to that, there are very few public spaces that kids can go to, or parents with kids with autism can go to, that are safe places. So what we decided to do was, let's take the entire Belmont Middle School and kind of reinvent the Optimist Hall, but with one key caveat, that it should be a safe place for kids with autism. And what does that mean? That means that it'll be fenced. Two, parents will be able to come there and be able to work within RBT to try to work the kids into the social fabric of the society. So that's what we're trying to do with the new Belmont Middle School. We also want to take the auditorium and dedicate that to children's theater, dedicate that to a community theater. So we'll talk to some of the largest, Blumenthal or others that already work and get their expertise. One of the things we're not good at, and we don't try to, is to be good at everything. So we're going to take expertise and help from, whether it's John and Jennifer, whether it's Dmitry, whether it's other developers, because we do what we do well. We work with seniors with cardiac, neuro, orthopedic issues. We work with kids with developmental delay. We work with cardiac patients in India. What we don't do is we don't develop. So we are, again, very fortunate that 10 years from now, people will be like, well, we don't know. How did you get into developing? It's because of the people, believing in people, really following a culture and saying that we want to recognize the expertise where it exists and leveraging it.
Yes.
And committing to it, but also giving it its due. Yeah.
So starting with the CompleatKidz facility there, you said now you're going to have about 30,000 square feet?
We are going to, the back building.
The back building?
Which is 30,000 square feet, will become our Belmont Clinic.
Okay.
We're currently resident in a warehouse with just 5,000 square feet in Belmont. We're running out of space. And so for this community to continue to get the services, we needed the space. We had also, one of the other areas that we're very keen on is almost a place to honor the providers and the kids that go through these programs with us. So we had approached originally the city of Gastonia to build a Walk of Fame. And that's been ripped off many times, the famous Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yes.
So we wanted to build, we wanted to talk to the city of Gastonia and say, will you dedicate the entire downtown Gastonia to the Walk of Fame for providers who work with, speech language pathologists and occupational therapists and physical therapists, as well as kids who graduate from these programs and then go on to do great things. And they wanted to move forward with it, but there were just too many hurdles to cross. So we thought, this is another area that we are going to dedicate the Belmont Middle School with, so that we can have not just kids who graduated from our program, not just providers, but we want this Belmont Middle School to become almost a living example, as well as not necessarily a shrine, but every brick there should be named after a provider around the world, around the country, that is working with kids.
Yes.
Whether it's special ed teachers, whether it is providers, pediatricians, psychologists, LPAs, BCBAs, RBTs, and the kids that graduate. 30 years from now, a child that has graduated from our program may come back with a family and look at the brick that has their name written on it. And so we think now that it is in our hands, private, I think we don't necessarily want to put the city of Gastonia in a quagmire, to have to accommodate our. If we do this well, then this will become a really wonderful place.
Absolutely.
So that's another area that's why we said we've never done 120,000 square feet, but this is for the right mission and purpose. So we want to be able to do that.
So that's the total square footage of the middle school is 120,000?
Yeah, by the time it's finished with all the additions we want to make, it'll be about 150,000 square feet. Yeah.
So tell me about the Walk of Fame. So will it be a Walk of Fame now and the bricks, or will you use the bricks for the building to
There's
dedicate?
several designs.
Okay.
Several designs. The current bricks. So we will imprint, but the entire area around will have several monuments to the kids and the providers across the country, across the world, and we'll invite artists to help us build a sculpture garden from that perspective. But the bricks and the cobblestones around the property, so we believe we can put in about 100,000 of those in a very elegant manner. We're looking for designs. We've had many design suggestions. So generally, with kids with autism or developmental delay, it's always a puzzle pieces, because their puzzle pieces fit differently, and so we've thought about that. We've thought about different murals, and Bob Fremgen and Gina have worked on this along with Alexandra, our designer. So we've shared some designs with City of Gastonia, but we are going to really ramp that up and start focusing on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see the finished product. Now we're talking about 150,000 total square feet that you're going to be developing there in the middle school. Can you walk us through, if you will, the design or the hopes to develop this?
Absolutely. So overall, we believe that the front building, which is the historic part, which was built in 1938, we want to, with all of our being, we want to preserve it. I think the city wants to preserve it, we want to preserve it, and so that'll cost some money. The front building is about 80,000 square feet. The rear building is about 30,000 square feet. So today it's about 40,000 square feet. Today it's about 120,000 square feet. By the time we finish, it'll be 150,000 square feet. So overall, our plan is we will move our clinic to the back building. Our offices will go there as well. So we will be bringing close to, just 150, 300 jobs at maturity. To start with, it'll be about 50 jobs that'll be translating or transferring from the warehouse where we are currently resident. It's only about 30 jobs right now. But over time, as the parking situation becomes clear, we will continue to add. And that'll become our corporate headquarters. So that's one part of it. So the overall site plan is that, and we want to share this, we will need parking, so we're proposing a public-private partnership to the city. One of the things we want to do with the parking deck, and I'll share that image with you, is that we believe the top floor of the parking deck, or the top platform of the parking deck should be green space. It'll be expensive, but this area is about 25 feet over the store park. So the parking can be all under, and the top can be a wonderful open area for people. So not to take that away. So we want to make sure that we maintain the green space, sculpture garden, theater and dance, courtyards, 2 courtyards internally, outdoor dining, beer garden on this side of it. In addition,
when you say a green space over the parking structure, do you envision that from Stowe Park, it would essentially be like a hill that goes over the parking structure, and the parking structure is hidden underneath that there? That's fantastic. Well, the Friday Night Live event, this last one,
absolutely,
that didn't get
we want
postponed.
to continue to.
Okay, that's fantastic. I think that'd be beautiful there. So from an aerial view, it just looks like a big hill.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And this parking structure, obviously parking is a hot item in downtown Belmont. When the facility is not in use, will that be available to downtown? Or
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Okay. So a public-private partnership where city steps in and does that, and we contribute to that in terms of acquiring certain spaces for the next 20 or 30 years, so city can build a financial model that pays for the deck over the next 20 to 30 years. Fantastic. I think will be perfect. The back building, CompleatKidz offices, CompleatKidz at the top, the fine art studios. We are also committed to helping the arts community in Belmont. And these are the classrooms on the 2nd floor of Belmont Middle School. Okay. When you're able to finally get in, you will see that these are beautiful studio spaces. And these artists will work with the kiddos at CompleatKidz. Arts and communication, theater, music is very, very valuable for and very helpful for kids with autism. So we want to not only build what we call an incubator space for the artists, we also want to be able to help our own kiddos, so selfish interest, to work with those artists.
And will they be artists that will lease the space from you and then be able to use it while also being a part of the mission, or will you bring in artists and essentially give them a role and a job?
Both.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We the city has spoken to us about potentially also taking the space and then subsidizing it to the artists as well. And there's a wonderful model in downtown Charlotte where they've created an artist space. From that perspective. The exhibition space, the current gym, we want to preserve that as an exhibition space / an area where people can congregate to be able to have different events, because there's no real event space in downtown Belmont. The auditorium is a community theater, children's theater. That's what we envision it.
Okay.
And it's currently got 854 seats. We think that's a little too much because generally in live theater people want to be closer to the stage to be able to see facial expressions and so on and so forth. We think it'll be about 500 seater theater. That'll be community theater, children's theater, and will become an event space for the city of Belmont. We would love to. We've already received some requests from ex-students of Belmont Middle School to be able to take one of the seats. So we may be raising some money by packaging these theater seats and then selling it to people who've graduated from Belmont Middle School. So we will probably reach out to you to promote that at some point. But all of that money will go into the community theater that we hope to build in partnership with Belmont, the city of Belmont. I think the city's vision is for mixed use space, and I think we want to, and our vision was mixed use. Long before we started speaking to the city, it was a wonderful coincidence that our vision and their vision coincided for the space. So we will have 6 condos, 2 in the back building, 4 in the front building, and then we'll have penthouses, 2 penthouses, 1 in the front building, 1 in the back building. that will add, one, that'll provide financial stability to the process of redevelopment, but two, it will be in line with the vision of the city as mixed-use space.
Mm-hmm. And will they be leased or sold?
Sold. We want ownership. We want ownership, and so that this property, long after we are all gone, maintains its glamour and relevance.
Absolutely, and that'll be the uppermost floor, the 4th level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the pediatric clinics, both the courtyards here. At the lower level, there's a restaurant, dining space, outside garden. There's a kitchen. We do want to have a microbrewery because two things as a homage to North Carolina. I think the best beer in the country is coming from North Carolina, especially Asheville and Charlotte. And a part of that is just the water from the French Broad River is so good. It's almost, it beats the Sierra Nevada, beats the Colorado, mountain streams now. It's so good. There are 700 microbreweries in North Carolina, but some of the best brewmasters are resident in North Carolina. So it's a homage to them, and we think Belmont does need a really good microbrewery. Jekyll and Hyde has tried to dabble into it.
Yes. And
our goal would be not to compete with the Main Street businesses. We want to be complementary to it. So we are looking at some of the best restaurants in the country opening a place here. We're looking at some of the best microbreweries out of Asheville that are looking for a place in Belmont. We're looking at some restaurants that'll be complementary to the kind of cuisine that's available in downtown Belmont, and that'll fit very well. One of the key criteria for us is any businesses that choose to be resident here and pick space will be the ones that will be committed to our mission of working with kids, working with kids with autism. And so some of them may even employ kids with autism as they grow. There are wonderful opportunities for kids to be able to get exposed to it. Otherwise, very few people take that chance.
Yes.
An annual revenue close to $30 million, and so we're talking about $300,000 to $500,000 a year going to charities.
Well, I like the model in showing support that if a restaurant or a brewery or a vendor, someone leasing space as a shared workspace, whoever that may be, that they're dedicated to the mission. I think that says a lot about the culture and how you bring people together to know that although we are in different industries or whatever it may be, we are not in business together, we're all partnered, and everyone under this roof is helping to move the needle. And I think that really says a lot, because there's a lot then you can do to bring those vendors together. And I see a community really being built here, and that's very exciting that it's not in silos or segments, but they're all working together. Although they're all in business for themselves, they're not in business by themselves. I like that approach.
Thank you for saying that. I think also the leaders for Gaston County. I remember the day the Gaston County Commissioners approved the deal. They all spoke, especially Ronnie. Ronnie spoke, who represents the Belmont area, the South Point area. He spoke and he said, "Look, my wife went to Belmont Middle School. My parents went to Belmont Middle School. We want to preserve it." And while he was thankful for us investing, he was also thankful for the fact that this is going to go towards a mission that he believes in, and it's a gift from the society and we are enabling that gift to the kids that need it.
Yes.
I'm going to show you the Belmont Middle School, and this is how we envision it. Okay. So the top will be a garden, and it'll be green space. And we can use it for events. Here we've shown trees, but I think there are various opportunities available, including just a pure green space that can be reused for concerts and food trucks and so on and so forth. All of this plot of land is owned by the city, so there under this top pad would be the parking. three layers of parking, and this would be at the top, which would allow for not taking the green space away from the city, but also leveraging and bringing parking.
Yes.
It's naturally the land is contoured that way, that it's 25 feet high, so you can have three levels of parking. So you can build about 600 parking spots there.
That would be beautiful. I love, obviously, the parking that would provide would be such a great extension to the park to then connect and engage with everything that's happening at the middle school.
And this is the front of so, rather than this being the front, and because of the traffic patterns here, we don't want this to be the front. We always want the downtown to be the front.
Wow.
So this will become a lawn. So this is in our interest as well, that we don't take away this space.
Yes, it's a great connection point there.
So this is what we are offering, and have a public-private partnership around this. And there are various ways to get this funded, but the city will have to step in, and they need the parking.
Yes.
So it's I think they are ready for it. We are ready for it. I think the town is ready for it.
Yes, well, as much as that is a pain point, I think we can at the very least put up a collection jar and
there you
get
go.
going on the parking. So Adi, thank you so much again, not only for what you've done in your businesses and how you provided for others to find themselves in one of your organizations or finding their passion and being able to walk in that, but obviously what you're doing for the community, what you did for the community when you purchased Compleat Rehab in 2005, and how it's grown to that point. Like I said, I don't want anyone to take it for granted because you're in our backyard that this is common. It's very uncommon. It's not what you're doing to change not only Belmont, but the state and the country and the world, dare I say. People want to change the world, but the work you're doing really is. So I just want to say thank you. How long will it take to get to that point of maturity? I did see that the CompleatKidz rehab will be the first, and is obviously the priority, as it should be. How far out are we, if all zoning and everything goes well, to be able to see that in action, and then subsequently the rest of the project?
We hope to dedicate it to the community and have the businesses there by middle of 2024. So it's about 2 years, 24 months. That would be our goal. It's an aggressive goal, but definitely 2024, 2025. Okay. But we'll start moving businesses in there and start activating the business, start activating the site.
Fantastic.
And I think almost everybody and at Care Partners, CompleatKidz, Compleat Rehab is excited. And I think we are here being able to talk on this and talk to you because there are people who are working very, very hard, and so dedicated to them, our entire team, Care Partners and CompleatKidz.
Well, a special thank you to all of your team, all of your staff, all of your leaders as well. And is there any call to action specifically that you want to give to the listeners as far as how they can support, engage, follow, whatever that may look like?
Please let us know. Please provide feedback through your podcast and leave lots and lots of comments, good, bad, or indifferent. That really, we want to listen to everything and we want to hear. And so feedback is very critical, especially in the early part of it. That is what my request would be.
Yes.
So if they can engage with your podcast and as you explain everything, and if they can leave feedback, that'd be wonderful.
Fantastic.
That'd be wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's, I shared this before, that a project like this or a podcast like this in most other communities would not be viable. There's something about Belmont and the surrounding areas, of course, where people are really bought in. And you mentioned earlier that there's a way that Gaston County conducts itself as far as its operation that lends itself to, yes, looking forward to progress, but also honoring the past and preserving that. And so people are bought in around here. And I think that there will be no shortage of feedback, and we'll be able to put that forward. But even beyond that, you're someone that I do see wants us to impact the community. So the feedback won't fall on deaf ears. You don't seem like someone that would outsource the survey or what have you. You're going to be in there, you're going to be processing that. So thank you for that. We will, we'd love to continue to follow the project, and we'll have some more interviews, I'm sure. And as you have team members that maybe need to get on and share on the platform, then feel free. This platform is yours to leverage. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Building Belmont podcast. I'm your host, Keanu Trujillo, reminding you to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. And of course, share with a friend, share with a neighbor. We'll see you again next week as we capture more stories, create more connection, and share more information here on the Building Belmont podcast.